So I was talking to a friend of mine recently, and it wasn't anything too out of the ordinary, but he is a personal trainer, and he was telling me about, the reason why he sees his clients struggle the most. And, it's, yeah, willpower, discipline, just time management. A lot of those things come into play, right? Many of the times. But he said the number one thing that he sees that people struggle with the most is saying no to friends, family, acquaintances when it comes to pivoting off the habits or falling off the diet really hard, right? People have this inability to be liked by others. And to be liked by others, you have to, at least in some people's minds, you have to like attend events, you have to continuously engage with people by their means, right? And if you say no enough times, then they're not going to want to be friends with you anymore. And to some people, that's a really scary feeling because some people just simply don't know how to be by themselves, right? Or be able to manage being by themselves. And that's why, to me, not knowing how to be alone and how to make friends out of thin air or out of nothing, if you have that problem, you really have to fix that because you're always going to be in a disadvantage. You're always going to be a slave to the friends and to the people around you because you need them more than they need you. And not even from the sense of like something tangible, like you need something. You just need their company. You need not to be alone deep down, right? You really don't want to lose a friendship because they mean so much to you because you see them as like, and don't get me wrong, like are people replaceable in that sense? Not necessarily, right? Like you shouldn't just see people and be like, oh well, I could just replace you with somebody else. That's not exactly what I'm saying, but at the same time, you have to be okay with if some people, right, like they're not serving your true goals and visions in life, and they're for the most part or for the higher part not understanding that, hey, like I want to be a person that, in this case, my friend, he's talking about, he's a personal trainer. I want to be a person that, sticks to their diet, goes to the gym like when they're supposed to, follows their meal plan, follows their diet to a T, stays consistent, right? And a lot of that comes down to the lifestyle. But what happens when the lifestyle is, is skewed, right, or influenced by those around you, right? I've seen this many times. I can't even, I don't know, man. I just have like a different personality to where I've always been like, well, I really want this more than I value you. And this is before I really kind of started to understand like the system of making friends and meeting people like in almost any kind of scenario, right? And I can make a separate video on how to like make friends in a new city, new town, new job, new whatever, new environment. It's not too complicated, right? There is some like, effort, manual effort involved. It doesn't just happen automatically. But anyways, I can make a video on that. But back to the main topic, right? You have people that are just seriously slaves to those around them, and it sucks because you can't really whine off of that. But I also like, it's that saying, right? Not even misery loves company, because I feel like many people have heard that before, but mainly that, what do I say? It's not misery loves company, but it's you'd rather, it's like trading known hells or unknown, or known hells for unknown heavens, right? Like you don't even know the kind of people you or friends you can make, by adhering to a new lifestyle change that's more productive for you, right? A lot of people say this too, like when they were drinking and drinking more often and, in that lifestyle, once they stopped drinking, those friends went out the way. Like the only thing they had in common was them drinking. I wouldn't be surprised if most people have that same problem with in regards to like, in this case, losing weight, but in any other facet, right? It's like people really have that problem. They struggle to just wean off of other people. And I honestly see this more with women than I do with guys. I feel like guys just are a lot, they don't struggle with this as much, right? Like, I've seen many, many times where when I was in college, right? I had my group of friends, I had different crowds of people. Some people went out a lot, some people kind of went out. And, I kind of ended up living with some folks who like went out a lot and they had circles of people who went out a lot. And I naturally, right, like would either get invited or would be around them to join a function or join something that's going on or go out, something along those lines, right? I shoot down my own hair here, like what the hell? Anyways, uh, I would get invited to some capacity, right? But I'm in college, right? I'm studying, you know. I have like a 3.0 through to 3.5 GPA every semester. I'm not like an A plus student, but at the same time, I care about myself. I care about, making my parents proud. I'm paying for college pretty much out of pocket. It's really important that I get my grades and, I don't fail class. And, I do something else outside of college. This is going to end. So, I had my fun, but I had times where I would have friends. They would invite me like on a Tuesday night, right, to go out, to go to drinks, right? Because we had this bar in our college town, and literally it was called quarter night. You could get shots for a quarter. It was, it should have been illegal, right? And I maybe been to quarter night. I can't even lie, maybe 3 or 4 times, but that's pretty good out of the span of a whole college career, right? Versus some people were going every Tuesday. That's different. So, if there was times, if I had deadlines, if I had class the next morning that was super early, yeah, man, I can't go out. And on top of that, I'm lifting, I'm in powerlifting. Do I really want to go out and drink and be around people that are drinking if I'm not going to be drinking? It's different. So people are like, you don't have to have fun to drink, but you got to understand, man, being around college kids that are drinking, it's a lot easier if you're also, at that state of mind. But anyways, so I said no many times, and you know what happened over time? I got invited less. I wasn't in the in crowd of that, right? Like I wasn't in the inner circle of that friend group of people that like went out all the time and had seemingly more fun, right? And did I have FOMO sometimes? Sure. But at the end of the day, what really, really gave me life and really gave me fuel for my spirit wasn't necessarily hanging out and doing those things, but it was doing the little things, right? Like I was counting my macros. I was cooking late at night while people were coming home from the bars, doing homework, like up late at night, just trying to finish essays and reports. And, it's like it is touches on a sentiment of like they're out partying, I'm out grinding, but I didn't look down upon them. You have to understand, it's not like it's just that like you respect what they do, but you also understand what you have to do. Like when I say that you don't have to be a slave to your friends, and you should, if you have a higher calling or purpose that you want to achieve and you feel like is innately calling you and you're naturally attracted to, and you're doing things that you see in your life that are driving you in that direction, just take the bold step and wean off of those people. Just don't be around them anymore if you have to. And if they ask you, just be honest. And if they can't appreciate the honesty, then oh well, that's not your problem to deal with. At the end, that's their problem, right? And I feel like this is just a lot of times this happens with people pleasers. Like I mentioned, it does happen with women. With guys, I've seen it happen too. A lot of guys don't want to be alone either. They rather hang out with the guy that they knew all their life because they went to school together. But little do they know, it's actually because of the habits that that person shares. It may drift them to doing more things that they may not necessarily feel uncomfortable with, but wouldn't necessarily do more often than not, right? And at the end of the day, that's an individual choice, right? But man, I just think about how many people, right, could be such live such different lives, lead in such different ways if they didn't have the influence of certain people around them, because they think that they're somehow like obligated to be friends with these people or have them in their lives, right? And I kind of was in that way, right? Like I had friends on wow, some of you may not even know this, but on TeamSpeak, off of like internet forums and stuff. And these people were like really smart, but they were also really toxic in the sense that like all they cared about was like the forum thread, video games, like didn't exercise, didn't do much of anything else outside of living on the internet, quite literally. And for a long time, at least 2 years, I kind of was in that same boat. But then I kind of like knew something wasn't right. I knew that deep down, right? Like these people are way older than me, but are living this way. I'm like 15, 16, so I don't really have much else other than high school to deal with, right? So after some time, I naturally like I really wanted to get bigger in the gym and stronger. Um, and I just stopped hanging around those people. I stopped hanging around those online spaces, especially when I got into college, right? Because there was no need to anymore. That's another thing I've realized is that people really don't maximize the benefits that you get from going to college, going to school, being at a really big corporate job or a job that has a lot of employees. More often than not, you're going to have so many communities or so many different groups of people or meetings or organizations, clubs. You can meet people like you don't. That's my thing. You don't understand that you don't have to be subjected to just your immediate circle of people that you know because you likely met them because you had to, in a sense. And when I say had to, it's because, oh, you went to school, right? Like some algorithm and some computer delegated you guys had classes at the same time. And that's how you met somebody. And now all I'm saying is that like you literally can just go out of your own means, right? Follow your intuition, search up something that you're interested in your town, city, state, job, club, group, Facebook, even, for cities and states and towns. Just look something up that you're related with and you can connect with people, make new friends that way. It's not like, and the world is so much bigger than that, right? Like you have the internet. You can meet I've met so many people on the internet that I would have never been able to meet nearly to the extent or build the relationships to the extent that I can, because to be honest, it's a lot harder to find people that have things in common with in an internet related space. I'll be on the internet, right? Common sense, but we naturally, I feel like in the online digital world, we just find people to gravitate towards, communities, YouTube pages, Discord, stuff like that. And so that just kind of makes sense. But you could literally find like, it's gonna sound retarded, but like a real life Discord in real life, you just have to join the damn server, right? People are like more friendlier than you think. They're more receptive than you think, as long as you're, present in the moment and you can get a grip about yourself. And if you're not there yet, you just have to practice. It just takes reps over and over. You know, if you're nervous, okay, you're nervous, man. What are you gonna do? Are you just gonna? You're nervous. You're not gonna do anything. I like, to me, at work there was an event today, and I don't know anybody at this job. Really, I mean that's not true. I do know folks at this job, but the company is a big company, and these folks are not always gonna be around when I'm around. So there was a company event today in the office, and a lot of people ended up showing up, and I was kind of like, I got some food, I got something to drink, and so kind of walking around the mingling area. People had their cliques, people had coworkers that they knew, and I didn't know anybody. I have coworkers, but they're all in different teams throughout across the country. So I'm in this new space and environment, right? But you know what? I see this group of girls that are talking amongst each other, and they have like an open seat. I just see the environment is like kind of inviting me to go be able to sit down. And sometimes it's not going to seem that way, and you can make up any excuse, but all you have to say sometimes is like, hey, excuse me, is this seat taken? Or can I park here? Or can I sit here? Or do you mind if I sit here? Or you can even make a comment about like, the environment, or like how crazy, wow, so many people here, right? And people understand it too. Like they understand like, oh, okay, this new person. They're going to maybe read you and judge you for like a first couple seconds to make sure that you're not a weirdo, because that's just all it is. Once people see that you can talk and, hey, what's your name? Who are you? Oh, how long have you been here? Oh, yeah. Okay, me too. Yeah. Oh, where are you from? This very introductory conversational pieces. guys, you don't have to like really think about this too much, you know? You do this enough times with so many people and you get creative in your sense. And I break this down to a science because I feel like a lot of people just simply lose that touch of a skill because we interact in these, like, you know, chances are you're watching this YouTube video because you play video games, you watch YouTube a lot or to some extent, right? Enough to watch a channel that doesn't have that many viewers and has a really niche audience, I guess you could say. So chances are, I'm gonna say that you probably spend a lot of time online, which is not bad. You just have to make sure that your skill tree points are balanced to be able to function better, you know, in the online or in excuse me, the real life sense. So again, it's not a bad thing. You just have to make sure that your eggs are not all in one basket. And that's a good problem to have because you know what you need to focus on and work on. You know, don't make excuses for that. But anyways, I feel like I've gotten so drifted off the main topic of this video, but to bring it all back, you know, I never made myself, I say never, but I started realizing I don't have to like slave myself to like the people that are around me. I could really make much more out of myself and bend reality to my will in that way. It's not so much about, you know, allowing things to happen in your life. It's about really taking vindication and control over the outcome of what happens to you. And yeah, sure, you can't control every outcome. You can't control the dynamics or you know, the, oh well, I can anticipate this and I can anticipate that and this person said this and they did this and that and I couldn't take. Of course, I'm not asking anybody to like be a genie or witchcraft, but at the same time, you know, you see something happen, you make it happen, man. And if you don't make it happen, something it wasn't either meant to be, it wasn't supposed to happen, or you try it again the next time. You know, how you react to a lot of these situations honestly dictates the mental reaction, right? Like the mental infliction of, wow, that, damn, like that, I would never want to do that again. Why? Because you feel so nervous afterwards when really nothing's happened. Half of the battle is training your mind to understand that, look, I'm okay. Nothing's happened to me. I have a roof over my head. I have food that I can eat. I know I have some money in my account. I have water. I'm alive. I'm a human being. You know, my value is not dictated by the opinions and meanings of others that they, you know, preconceive with me that honestly most of the time has nothing to do with me. People, you live, you have so many versions of yourself that live in people's brains. Like it's impossible to imagine like how many versions of you out there just based off of how like so many factors, either how you presented yourself to somebody, where you met them, how what mood they were in, what was going on in their life when they met you, the things that you said and the mood that you were in when you said things, like so many factors. So it's too much to worry about that, guys. So, you know, like that's why it's literally when people say, oh yeah, it's literally a numbers game with women. I'm gonna be honest, it really is. Like you could increase your chances in some aspects, but at the end of the day, it's just really like more input leads to more output. You know, and really the modulation of that is just, you know, if you're not having that much of an output, maybe modulate the formula of the input, right? And you can just change the reality of that to whatever and however you want. So, you know, don't be afraid to like just wrestle with your life, right? You know, if you're doing this kind of job or this kind of position, you know, and you don't like it and you see something else that intrigues you, dude, just dig into it, you know, go full force into it. Learn about as much as you can, interact with people. I mean, even like on I was hearing a video by BizPath and he was explaining how, like, you know, he was trying to like, you know, entrepreneurial, self-entrepreneurial. Anyways, I forget the exact point he was trying to make, but what he did was he would go on LinkedIn, and typically on LinkedIn people ask for like coffee chats and stuff. But, you know, I'm not saying that you have to do this necessarily, but the level of extent he was going to reach out to new people and people that were doing the things that he wanted to do, he would ask like, hey, you know, I want to do this thing. I see that you're doing this. I really want to learn and understand. I will pay you for your time. I'll pay you like $100, or I don't know how much he said, but He's like, I really like, you have to differentiate yourself and show the raw passion out of it. And the only way that you do that is kind of making yourself known, right? If you're in an area where you can have more opportunities happen to you, just by the law of averages, you're going to be able to do that, you know? So, going back to it, right? I mentioned that I was at that work event. The woman I was sitting there talking to, she was like, "You're so brave. I would never do this by myself. I like try to coordinate to come here with somebody. They've had these events like once every month, and I never come by myself." I'm like, you just gotta like, like, well, how else am I supposed to experience this? By waiting on somebody else and like, asking somebody else constantly, hey, can you come with me to this thing? Can you come with me to this thing? And there are people that literally do that. I've spoken to guys that do that. If you're somebody that, relies on somebody else to do something else, you're really handicapping, really the quality of your life, if I'm being honest, because you're allowing somebody else to dictate whether or not you can be able to do something. And I don't know, what to me that's always been kind of a crazy concept. As I've been in my adult years, I typically don't. Me personally, right? I typically don't, not vibe, but like associate or like to associate myself with people who kind of think in that way, right? Like, oh man, like I gotta go with this person because, and if I'm not, I'm by myself and I can't do it by myself. So, and you don't realize, but you have those thoughts, but they're not like conscious. They're like, you'll find reasons to make it seem convenient why you won't do things, and just make sure that over time you can see the span of time and see really what's true there, right? So anyways, guys, I've talked enough. Like the video if you liked it, don't if you don't, and I'll see you in the next one.